Hello, it's 5 o'clock. Come on in, come on in. Hey. Hello, everyone. Hey, how's the weather? It just stormed here, but it's over now. Let me cut this on mute. It's hot here, but it did just storm. So I haven't been out since the storm, so it's done one or two things. It cooled off or it's super humid. Uh-oh. I didn't hit the button. Give it another minute and then I'm going to get started. I don't know where my glasses are, so I'm going to just wear these. Lord, I gotta. All right, it's 5:03. Let's get going. So I'm talking about boundaries. This is something that has tripped me up for years. I grew up in the era of children should be seen, not heard, women should be seen, not heard. And so boundaries was always something very difficult for me because it was almost like if I stood up for myself, I was in some way, shape, or form being disrespectful. So I couldn't say, hey, don't say that to me. Hey, don't do that to me. Hey, I just had to accept whatever it was because I didn't have a say. And so when you learn to create a lane for yourself that really is disrespectful, it just becomes who and what you are. And so then it becomes how you operate in life, period, right? So now I'm at this big grown age and I'm trying to establish boundaries, and sometimes it's hard. And so I was like, you know what, let me talk about boundaries. So wanted to talk about what's the purpose of boundaries, helping to identify who and boundaries actually help to identify who you are, what you stand for, and what you will allow, right? So think about like a property line. So, I just bought a house and it was kind of a little bit of a battle between my neighbor and I on property lines. So we had to get the people to come out and put the, measure it again and tell the people, hey, this is her property. You can't cross this. If you put your fence over this, then you either have to pay her rent, you have to remove it. But it's a trip because with property lines, after so long, if you don't say anything to that person, they own your land. So I was thinking about that's kind of like with us. If you don't set a tone of how you will allow people to move with you, they kind of own you to a certain degree. I try to tell my daughter all the time, you got to be in control all the time of your emotions, because if you're not, you really become a puppet to somebody else. They become your master, because if they say something, now you're constantly in a state of movement because of how somebody else moves. So I wanted to just kind of, just from a sight part, like I thought that was interesting with the whole property line. So I also learned that boundaries are needed in every aspect of our lives. They're needed on our job, they're needed in play, and they're also needed in conflict. And I didn't think, can you really have boundaries in conflict? Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things for me is I had to learn that boundaries are not for other people, they're for me. So like one of my boundaries is you can't cuss at me. You cannot cuss at me. Once you cuss, I let that be known. So you got to let your boundaries be known. So I let that be known. Listen, don't cuss at me, or don't use this particular word with me, right? And then if you do, because I can't stop this grown person from doing or saying whatever it is they want to do or say. But I can say to Monique, they didn't respect that boundary. It's the end of the conversation. It's the end. And you don't have to be nasty about it. You just simply end the conversation. And if you're able, get up and walk away, because the conversation is over. I let you know this is how I operate. You choose not to drive in this lane. Okay, no problem. You will just drive without me. So, and I had to think about that. It's been this big debate about, in my dating world. This big post about control, like control and submission. And it made me think about the Secret Service, right? Like, you think the commander-in-chief is actually like, he's their boss, right? He's the Secret Service supervisor. However, they tell him what to do. And it's been like that ever since the assassination of President Kennedy, because he decided, hey, I'm going to drive around with the top off, and they advised him not to do it. But he was like, nope, I'm going to do it anyway. This is what I want to do. And he unfortunately was assassinated. So now they tell the president, this is how you're going to move. This is how, because you can't protect what you can't control. You can't protect me. I can't protect Monique if I have no control over the governing of how I'm going to allow me to be treated. So, and boundaries are not ultimatums. They're not threats. It's just your standard. And healthy boundaries allow for three things. It allows for accountability, respect, and open communication. And if you can't do any of those three things, then there's a problem with your boundaries. And you got to ask yourself, okay, what's going on here? Why can't I be honest with this person and say, hey, this hurts my feelings? Why can't that person accept the level of accountability? Or why can't I accept it? Because sometimes we have the boundary issue. I know, being a parent, sometimes we get that I'm the adult, you're the child. And I had to learn that Nadia isn't a mini me. She is Nadia, and she has her own feelings. And even though I may be okay with being told something in this manner, that may not be how she can receive it. And so I had to learn how to allow her to have a respectful voice. But that still was a boundary that both of us had to create. Okay, I won't say this, but I also need you to do this. So it has to be a reciprocal. And when it can't go that way, listen, there are times I put myself on punishment. You know what, Nadia? I'm too upset right now to have this conversation with you. I can't have an open and healthy conversation with you. So I have to remove me, because I don't want to say something that now we got to sit in counseling 20 years from now because I said da-da-da-da-da, and it then shook your life for the rest of your life, right? So you have to also have boundaries with yourself, with your children, on how, and just with people in general. Okay, if I say this got to be cut off because I'm going too far. I'm going too deep. So Healthy boundaries also look like this. Valuing your own opinion. You got to be able to value your own opinion. You have to respect limits set by you and by others, not compromising your values, and sharing information appropriately. I didn't really always know how to do that. I still probably struggle a little bit with that. Sometimes I don't have a filter. Sometimes I just think, well, we grown. Can't we just talk about this? No, everything is not appropriate to discuss in this time. Sometimes it's just, hey, I can't receive what you're saying right now. Give it a minute. Being able to effectively communicate what I need. It is irresponsible to think that somebody knows what you need or what you want. You have to be able to communicate that. You know, we try to figure it out with babies when they crying. Okay, is the cry because they hungry, they wet, they want to be held? But we can speak. Communicate what it is that you need. And being able to accept no and being able to give no. And identify when a boundary's been broken. So, one of the things that I struggled with the boundary thing is I had to learn to love me enough to truly love me. And I was like, dang. Because for many years, I just didn't love me. I didn't know how to love me. And so I had to learn to spend some time with me. Spending time with me created for me to learn how to love me. I had to be willing to walk away from what didn't work for me. That included some jobs. That included some people. You got to be able to walk away from it. You got to also, you have to love you in order to be able to properly love anybody else. So, and when you have weak boundaries or boundaries that have not been properly defined, then their cousins start coming to the party. Their cousins are stress, resentment, burnout, anger, overload, guilt, anxiety, depression, and losing yourself in the process. You know, it's funny because Nadia friends, and Nadia does this too, but her friends will say, Nadia's mom. I'm like, my name is Monique. You can call me Miss Monique. You don't have to call me Nadia's mom. You say more words with saying Nadia's mom than Miss Monique. Like, come on now. Or maybe it's the same. Nadia's mom, Miss Monique. Okay, it's the same. But anyway, call me Miss Monique. Don't identify me as just Nadia's mom. Like, you know, I have an identity. But not having boundaries can cause you to lose who you are in this process. So, as I started studying the scriptures, I was like, I want to be like Christ. And then I thought about it like, man, Christ set boundaries for people. As much as people pulled on him, as much as people were touching garments, as much as people were doing all these things, he still set boundaries to be able to endure people in life. And so I want to just walk through a couple of those. The first thing he did was he understood that when he took on human form, that he was human. It's only 24 hours in a day. It's not 26 hours. I can't be in two places at once. I'm one person, 2 hands, 2 feet. This is all I can do. He also, he prioritized his time with God. If it was, he was sitting in Gethsemane, if it was when he was in the wilderness, or when he was out there on the water, he took time for self. He took time to renew himself back to the Father, to, be honest about what it is that he was going through, what it is that he was requiring, making sure he understood and heard God's voice. And Jesus wasn't always nice to people. There was times he just didn't grant people what they asked for. Over in Matthew 58, he told them, They asked him to do some miracles. He said, no, your faith is keeping you from having that. I'm not doing that for you. Nope. And sometimes we got to say no to people just because your decisions created the situation you in. You did this. Now, these are the consequences. Now, I'm not saying if you can help, yes. But at the same time, sometimes, especially like even with our children, sometimes we got to let them cross some bridges because they just don't understand it. My girl, Mickey Howard, said the best: experience is the best teacher. Sometimes you just have to experience some things. And if people are constantly pulling you out of the situation, if God is constantly snatching this out of you, then you never get that callous, like the weightlifters. They lift weights and they hands be all jacked up. You're like, dang, you can grate some cheese with your hands. But it don't hurt them after a while because it's a callus. And so, but every time we asking God to remove something or to take this or help me, we never get to a place where we get some tough skin to be able to, that don't even hurt anymore. I got so many burns on me from cooking. Stuff don't even burn me no more. I'm like, oh, I got a burn. It don't even hurt. I got this look like I done got branded. It don't hurt like it did once. You just kind of got to get to that point where you get some tough skin. And then Jesus was honest with God when in Matthew 26:38, when he said, remove this cup from me. He didn't want to go to the cross for you. He sure didn't want to go for me. He did not want to do it. He said, but not my will, your will. And he was honest. We got to be honest with God. He already know how we feel. But just had that relationship where you could just kick it with him. Y'all know I love David. And David was so honest with God. He was like, look, slay my enemies. Why you gonna let these fools do this to me? Slay them, kill them. Why I gotta endure this? You just gotta be honest. And he also didn't let people manipulate him. He didn't let the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and he didn't even let Martha. When Martha was like, Lord, if you had been here, my brother wouldn't have died. That was in John 11:21. And he had a human moment when she said that because he cried. That's actually the shortest book in the verse in the Bible. Jesus wept. And after he had his moment, he got it together and he went and handled his business, but he just didn't let people manipulate him. And we have to be able to do the same things as we set these boundaries. And ways to set boundaries is, like I said, getting prayer time, be honest and direct. Everything don't require a whole lot of communication. Sometimes it's just yes and no. Set the priority. You can't serve two masters. And I know y'all done heard, you can't light a candle at both ends. You can't burn at both ends of the wick. You can't, in one day, 24 hours, only can do this. And aim to please God. So here are some things how does boundaries, what do they sound like? I wish I could help you, but I'm not available to support you right now. I can't commit to that. I'm sorry, it was a couple that I took out. I don't discuss that matter. That was a big one for me. I had to learn. I can't discuss everything with everybody. I don't discuss that matter. I trust that you will find a solution for your situation. I have nothing planned, but I don't plan to do that either. I hope that you find a solution to your problem. I'm not able to take on anything additional right now. This was a big one for me. Please don't comment about my weight or my appearance. Keep it to yourself. I know what the scales say. I know what the mirror look like. I don't need you to comment, but thank you. So now, what are your boundaries? I want you to ask yourself, what's important to me? What are some of my boundaries? How how do my values protect my, I'm sorry, how do my values protect my values? And what boundaries do I need to set? And that's it. That's it. It was I love the fact that Jesus was so honest and so real and just was like, look, yeah, I can do it, but I'm not going to. And we have to, you don't have to be nasty, you don't got to be mean. Just set the standard. I'm not able to do that for you. I can't do that. And it's okay. So I thank you guys for joining in. That's it. If you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or give me a call. And remember, boundaries are not threats and they are not ultimatums. They are required for you. They are required for you. All right, y'all. Love y'all. Talk to you later. All right. Bye. Uh-oh.